In this lesson, I'm going to explain what exactly is the client risk profile and how it's used. GAS requires that we gain an understanding of the client's business and document this understanding in our audit file. The better we understand our client's business, the better we are able to assess the client business risk. A client business risk is a risk that it will fail to achieve its objectives, possibly even leading to a going concern issue. Client business risk can arise from both internal and external sources. Our primary concern is to determine the extent to which the risk of material misstatement can arise due to client business risk. So to understand how client business risk and the risk of material misstatement are connected, let's go through the sort of things that get documented in the audit file. Before we get started though, I find it interesting to note that there have been many high business profile failures that have arisen in recent years. And I question whether the auditors have got this assessment right. Of course, I'm talking about the usual suspects that you hear about all the time, like Enron and WorldCom and Nortel. But we have more recent examples of Sino Forest and SNC-Lavalin, two Canadian giants. Sino Forest apparently for overstating their timberlands in China, and SNC-Lavalin for making $56 million in bribes to foreign agents to land major projects. In Sino Forest's situation, the auditors, E&Y, have resigned, but it almost feels like an afterthought, like the horse has already left the barn by the time the auditors have taken this sort of action. My point is that getting the client risk profile assessment correct is not only important to do, but I think it's extremely challenging for the auditors. I also think the auditors are not well trained in performing this assessment. Checklists work well for mindless yes-no type disclosures and procedures, but work less effectively for making judgmental assessments such as the client business risk profile. Just imagine for a moment putting yourself in a situation with one of those clients I just mentioned. It would take a serious amount of courage to walk into the partner's office and suggest that client business risk is high because you, the lowly little junior auditor, think the company may not be a going concern. Or perhaps even more judgmentally, you question management integrity. This is truly one of the great challenges of the public accounting profession. Imagine walking into the SNC-Lavalin Audit Committee meeting and telling the directors that SNC represents a high client business risk. And then imagine telling the directors that your audit firm will have to perform more work to enable the opinion to be rendered, which of course means extra audit fees. And if the committee disagrees, the firm is contemplating resignation from the engagement. How many auditors would have the courage to do that with such a prestigious company such as SNC-Lavalin? Keep this context in mind as we go through the sorts of things that the auditor examines to enable them to make this assessment. So, let's start by putting our arms around what we need to know about the client's business and the industry. First of all, let's start with discussing the industry and the external environment. You could be the most efficient operator in the industry and do everything right, yet still go to business. In certain industries, participants have no pricing power, or they are subject to rapid obsolescence due to new technologies. Some industries even have their own accounting practices, which have become generally accepted. For instance, utilities, real estate, oil and gas industries, among others. Thus, it's imperative for the auditors to understand the industry almost as well as their clients do. The client will provide a lot of this information, but there is often plenty of information available from industry associations, analysts, and industry specialists. Next, we need to consider the business operations and processes. No two businesses are set up alike. For instance, business structure has a huge impact on the day-to-day activities and the organizational culture. A highly decentralized business empowers the individual and may have less formal processes, whereas a highly centralized structure would have a more bureaucratic, formal structure to it. Consider the sorts of IT systems that the client has implemented. Is it an advanced, integrated enterprise resource system like SAP? Or is it a mismatch of different systems strung together with electronic and manual interfaces? Often, the auditor will do a plant tour just to get a feel of the operations and meet the people outside of the finance department. And you can learn a lot about seeing the equipment and the inventory for yourself. And this will later help you visualize the dollars as you see them flowing through the statements. Keep in mind that the financial statements tell a story of what has gone on in the business. What you see happening in the plant or during conversations with the operating personnel should be reflected in the numbers you are auditing. Next, we have the need to document our evaluation of management. This is where things really get tricky because we are not only looking for appropriate approvals in major transactions like the issuance of debts or major business acquisitions, but we are also looking to assess the overall tone at the top of the organization. The auditors will spend time reading the minutes of the board meetings, looking for indications of significant matters discussed, and determine the impact of what these might have on the risk of material misstatement. The auditors will spend time looking at the ethical code of conducts and any violations in the code and the actions taken by the company. The auditor will identify and read major contracts. The auditor will identify related parties so that later they can ensure that all transactions with related parties have been identified and disclosed. More importantly, they need to consider the business risks associated with transactions with related parties. There could be conflicts of interest to consider. There could be economic dependence on key suppliers or key customers that may not even be a related party in a legal form, but in substance, absolutely. The tricky part of assessing management and governance, in my mind, is that you're evaluating a group of very senior people with often decades of individual experience. There is clearly an imbalance of power between what you know and they know. Having documented the effectiveness of management, we will next look at the client's objectives and strategies. Now, the objectives can be broken down into different categories. Strategic objectives are those that plan for the growth and development of the business. Financial reporting objectives are those that are concerned with the accurate and timely internal and external reporting. Operational objectives are those designed to improve the efficient and economic productivity of the business. Compliance objectives ensure that the business stays on side with all legal and regulatory requirements. Obviously, the auditors are primarily concerned with the client's achievement of the financial reporting objectives, but the different categories do not exist in isolation. If a client fails to meet a strategic objective, you could easily find a company facing a going concern issue. Do you care about that? You're damn right you do. If a client is failing to achieve an operational objective, say there's issues with product quality, do you care? Sure you do. There could be a return allowance to consider, a product liability lawsuit, an inventory valuation assertion issue to consider. If a client is failing to meet a legal or regulatory standard, same question. Are you concerned? Well, there is absolutely financial reporting implications to consider. Everything from the fines to the environmental cleanup to the contingent liability to the loss of the ability to operate. If someone has the power to shut you down, then it's a going concern issue as well. So getting a handle on the client's objectives and broadly across all those different categories is absolutely important. And finally, we need to consider the performance and measurement. Certain companies place a tremendous amount of pressure on management and employees to perform and achieve desired results. This pressure to perform can create management bias to report more favorable results than actually achieved. It may not be individually motivated. For instance, a company that has certain debt covenants that is required to maintain to sustain financing obviously has a vested interest in ensuring that the covenants are maintained at all costs. So these are other items that we need to be aware of. So as you can see from this discussion of the client risk profile, there are pervasive factors at play that can override everything else that is going on in the day-to-day of the business. This overall assessment gives the auditor a theme to work with throughout the audit. If the analysis suggests more caution is necessary than normal, then it should be incorporated into the audit plan and the audit execution. Auditing is made up of hundreds, if not thousands of hours of mundane testing. But it's these sorts of high-level assessments that we have discussed here in this lesson that truly get at the major risks of an engagement, which is why we do this first. If you get this assessment wrong, then the thousands of hours you have just spent may all be for nothing. That's all for now, so until next time, don't stop till you get to the top, and you get to the top, don't stop.